You're now tuned in to The Investor Show, where we teach simple wealth creation for the common investors. With investment advisor, award-winning author, international speaker, and founder of Royal Financial Investment Group, Prince Dykes.
Once again, guys, this is The Investor Show as always. This is your host, Prince Dykes, coming to you guys live all the way from the beautiful state of Hawaii. Guys, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, comment, share button, question button, all the other great stuff. However you may get this throughout the social media and across the globe. And I thank each and every one of you guys for tuning in. But as always, guys, I know you guys don't want to hear my mouth talk all the time. So I don't have a lot of time, and I definitely know you guys don't have a lot of time. So we're going to jump straight into it. We're going to be talking about government contracts and securing contracts and all the good stuff like that. So we got a very, very special guest on the line with us today. We got Mr. Cortez Duncan. He's calling in today. I think he's in the Maryland area. You're in Maryland, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's in Maryland. So he's going to sit by. He's going to talk to us. He built his own company, and he was able to secure government contracts and private sector contracts, and all of the good stuff like that. That's how much these contracts are worth, if you don't mind telling.
One is worth around 3.1, and the other was a pretty small contract. It was like $15,000, but all money's good money.
All money's good money. So $1 million contracts. How did he get this? He built his own company. He got this from the government to provide a service, I'm guessing, and and doing on the private sector as well, crossing over, doing government and private sector. So he's going to be dropping in a lot of gems today. So you guys, sit back and just learn something. So Mr. Cortez, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Prince.
You're doing great. So for people out there, who probably don't know about you and your company, could you tell us who Mr. Cortez Duncan is? And it was is it RCM Technologies? Did I read that correctly?
No, 2CM Technologies.
2CM. 2CM
yes, sir.
Technologies. So tell us a little bit about yourself and 2CM.
All right, will do. So, like you said, the name's Cortez Duncan. I'm a military veteran also. I did 10 years in the Air Force. I was in the intel field. So I founded 2CM Technologies back in September of 2013 with the goal of employing really sharp and high quality, high level talent that I had been working with throughout my 26 years now career in the intel field and working with DoD. So after sequestration and seeing how the government had cut so many of my contractor colleagues and saw how companies were treating these wonderful people, I decided I wanted to start my company so that I could be a beacon of light and hire great quality talent, put them to work, cultivate their careers, show them that they're not just a number, and we could build wealth and build a brand together. In terms of 2CM Technologies specifically, we are an IT services company, primarily servicing DoD and the state of Maryland. We provide engineering talent. Most of our guys are engineers, but we also have technical writers, system administrators, test engineers, and the like, help desk. We pretty much run the gamut. We're service disabled, veteran owned, and we're also a minority business enterprise within the state of Maryland. Right now I have 3 employees, but we're looking to double in size. Hopefully this year. I have some people submitted for positions that are currently on the book, so just waiting to get approvals for those guys. And we're just trying to build a really strong company to compete with some of the bigs out here, even though we don't necessarily want to be a big company, but we're trying to put our stamp on the industry.
Okay, all right. So, first of all, thank you for your service. Being a veteran into the Air Force, 10 years. So let me get this straight. So you did 2 years in the Air Force. Did you go to college before you joined the Air Force, or you was right out of high school? How was that?
No, I actually I went to college full time, community college. I went to community college full time for 2 years before I came into the Air Force.
Okay.
I was working, so I was going to school full time, but I was also working at I worked at Georgetown University my freshman year, and then George Washington University my sophomore year. And I decided that I wanted more than working that hustle and bustle, getting on the subway every day, going down to downtown DC, and then having to race home and get homework done. So that's when I decided to join the Air Force.
Okay. So you join the Air Force, you do 10 years in the intelligence field, and you separate, right? You separate, and did you work for the government after you separated, or how did that go?
After I separated from the Air Force, I did contracting work. So from 2001 up until I'm still a contractor, but up until 2001 up until the time I started 2CM Technology, I was employed by someone else. I worked as a contractor.
Okay, so while you're contracting, did you just like wake up one day and was like, you know what, I want to start my own company?
Not quite. So I've always had the entrepreneurship bug. My major in college was business management. So back in early 2000s, because I'm also big into fitness, I started a personal training company, Butts and Gut Fitness, and we did that for 6 years and had great success. But I kind of got burned out because I had my full-time job, and then I was also training clients, starting at 5 a.m. in the morning, from like 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. Then I would go to work all day. Then I would come home and train clients from like 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. And so after doing that for like 6 years straight, I just kind of got burned out and I let that go. And, just did my full-time job. And then, like I said, around 2013, our son, we have a son who's now 25 years old. He had gone to college, and it was just my wife and I. So I had some spare time, and I was like, this is the time to get it done. So that's when we decided to stand it up and make it happen.
Okay. So essentially, what you've done was you did your time in it. You did community college, and you was like, hey, I want something a little bit better. You joined the military. You got the intelligence field, made some connections while in the military. Then got out, went to the contracting side of the government. So contracting is a company that has a contract via the government. So you work for this contracting company in the intelligence field. Then you decided to, hey, you know what? Let's just go off and just start our own company. And when you started your own company and you went off and got a contract, how did you get this, this multi-million-dollar contract with the government?
So I'm sure you've heard this before, but everything in business has a lot to do with networking. So
Yes.
being that I had been in the field for so long and knew so many people, I leveraged those relationships to meet the decision makers and the people holding the checkbook. So just working those relationships, I got in contact with people that could help me, and I had some great people that stood up and said, hey, I know this guy. I trust his company. He's going to do a great job. He's a value add. Let's add him to the team. And that's, in a nutshell, that's how it kind of happened.
That's a great point you hit on, right? You said the most, and I'm with that 100%. I always feel as though the most important piece you can have with a company is the most important piece you can have with a company, not a company, but in business, is your network. I mean, having the education is great, having the skills is great, but if you can't monetize that and take that to someone or know someone that can help you out or whatever the case may be, it's almost like you could be worthless. So that's a great point that you said that, hey, you need your network. Like I had one of my cousins was telling me one day, they was like, I see you met all these people, you're networking, you're doing this or whatnot. What are you going to do with this in the future? And I feel as that's the most important piece to have over anything else. the network. If something was to happen, can you pick up the phone, or do you know anybody that can help somebody out? You know what I mean? So that's great that you said that you use your network and got with the decision makers. Now, the thing about it is, some people out there who don't understand what a government contract is. What the heck is a government contract, and why are they giving out millions of dollars for this? How does that make sense?
So, the government, is DOD in particular, they have a multitude of tasks that need to be accomplished for them to be able to protect us, right? So, regardless of the field, they need somebody to fill that position, to fill that seat, to do that job. Well, the government doesn't necessarily have the resources within the government to do those positions. So in that case, they look to the outside, they look to the commercial sector to provide that expertise. And so in doing that, they solicit other companies to come in and bid on work and fulfill those tasks. And again, in a nutshell, that's kind of how it works. They're just kind of looking for, like you as a homeowner, if you need somebody to cut down a tree, you may not know how to cut down a tree, so you have to go out to the outside and find a company that specializes in cutting down trees. So more or less, that's how it works.
Okay. So the government has tasks that they're looking out for people to do. Where there's in the intelligence community, service community, cleaning, janitorial services, all the other great stuff. And they go out. Okay, so they go out, they find particular companies, and this contract, does it have the dollar amount? What do you do with the dollar amount? Do you do whatever you want with it? How does that go?
No. So you basically have to show how every dollar is going to be spent. So you have you have to show them how that money is going to go towards the direct labor, the fringe benefits, the benefits package for your employees, the administrative stuff, supplies, depending on what the tasks are, equipment, resources, and all that stuff. So you pretty much have to account for it every dollar, and they allow you. You're allowed to make some profit, but you have to justify every dollar. So during the proposal phase, the RFP phase, request for proposal, you have to spell out every dollar. Like, so you may say it's going to cost $1 million to fulfill this requirement that you, the government, have put out there. Well, you have to show what that $1 million is going to go towards.
Got it. Now, for someone who's tuning in, someone who's listening, like, well, okay, that's pretty cool. How do you know? Not everybody's Intel. They do stuff with, food, all this other great stuff, right? Now,
yeah.
Someone who's sitting back listening, they're like, man, Mr. Cortez, you got a good idea. How can I'm seeing what he done. How can I get my own contract? How can I go out and do it? What advice would you give them? Or what roadmap?
I would say, everybody has to do like a self-assessment, right? Not everybody's built to be a business owner. Some people are fine with just getting a paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever. There's not a lot of people that have the cojones, have the perseverance, the determination, the stick-to-itiveness, all of that stuff, all of those characteristics to go out there, find work, find people to do the work, then nurture that talent, continue to build that talent, take care of that talent, because once you go into business and you have employees, you're responsible for your employees' family. You're responsible for them being able to put food on the table, and that requires you as a business owner to hump. I mean, grind doesn't even really isn't the measurement of what you get, that level of effort that you have to put forward. I mean, you have to be in it 24/7 because you have not only your mouths to feed in your house, but mouths of your employees to feed. So, all of that being said, obviously you got to go ahead and register with your state or whatever, and create your company, create your entity, and then from there, depending on what sector of government or what industry you're in, because maybe you're not government, maybe you're commercial. You kind of, you know, there's the steps are tailored towards what industry you're in. But since I'm in DoD and I can speak DoD, so in the DoD realm, you you register your company, then you have to get your tax ID number through the IRS. Then you have to get your DUNS number, your Duns and Bradstreet number. You got to get a cage code. You have to register in SAM, and all of those things are necessary for you to be able to do business with the government, with DoD in particular, but with the government in general. And then from there, you have to register, or you should register with sites like FedBiz Ops, because that's where you're going to see a lot of the solicitations, and see what the government, see what work the government is looking to fill, has filled, and they have a link on there for interested vendors. So you register as an interested vendor, and one of the things I did, you can see the list of other vendors that have registered as interested vendors. I got a copy of that list, and I cold called everybody on that list. And I introduced myself, I introduced my company, and I said, you know, I told them what we bring as a company, what value we can bring to bring as a company and bring as a teammate to them. And that's how I did it, man. That's how I did it. Started building relationships and started, you know, extending an olive leaf and starting a dialogue.
Okay, so you went onto the sites and you saw where what was that site again? Fed. What you say that site?
Fed FED Biz BIZZ Ops OPPS. I think it's .com or maybe .gov. It's one of the two. But that's where you see all of the solicitations that the government have put out, different sectors of the government.
You went on the Feds. Okay, go ahead.
You can also a lot of this stuff. You can also go to your local SBA website, Small Business Administration website, and it'll have a lot of these details on there also. But yeah, those are more or less the steps that I took.
Okay, so you went on there and you saw what people was looking for, and you called the companies and you brought up your service.
Yes.
You know, that's something I always tell people too. I heard this terminology. I don't know where it came from, but they say opportunity doesn't come to the people who deserve it. It comes to people who create it. And by that meaning that I know people who are very talented at something, and they think that it's going to come to them. They think that, hey, my talent is going to be discovered. But a lot of times, you know, let's say you may be a good radio personality, and you may be going around looking for a radio gig. It may not come to you. So what you may have to do is you may have to go buy your own equipment and create your own via social media or something like that. Create your own blog or create your own podcast or something like that. And then you may get discovered via that way. People may see your talent that way and they say, hey, you know what? That's a great idea. You know, boom, now this person has a radio show. But had they not went out on their own and created pretty much like you did with the cold calling, you just picked up the phone and cold call. Had they not created their own, they probably would have never gotten discovered, you know. So, you know, because once you create your own thing like you did, you created 2CM, right? 2CM Technologies, you created it, and then you went out and found your own opportunities to be able to utilize, you know, your company. And that's a great point that I wanted to hit on to that too. And it was something that I did, you know, a personal story of mine was for most people out there already know, I published 2 books. I wrote and published 2 books, cartoons, all that good stuff like that. So with that being said, with these 2 books, I had mailed these 2 books off to so many people. You know, I've done everything, right, from Shark Tank to pretty much name it. I probably went out and mailed it. I never got a call back from anybody. Right. But I kept trying it, and probably like on my 100th time, the only person that it ever worked on was Warren Buffett. So I tell people all the time, you know, like you said with the cold calling, some people think you may have a great product and you may put it out there, but you have to go work it by picking up the phone over and over and over and over. Then first you're going to get no calls. You probably get nobody answer the phone. Then nobody returns your call. Then you get some people that do return your call but don't follow through. But you just have to, like you said, they have the cojones to, to stick through it. But that's great stuff. That's a great pipeline. Now, looking back on this, what are some things that you say where people maybe I would say, quote unquote, mess up, or mistakes, or where people or some common areas you probably see like this is where I see people kind of may throw some red flags.
Yeah, so I think some people come into it not realizing the amount of work that it's going to take. Because even if you've been in the industry a long time, and kind of piggybacking on your point, you're gonna have to hustle, and it's all business, so you can't take anything personal. So if somebody doesn't return your phone call, you can't get discouraged or get an attitude about it. You just have to keep grinding, dust yourself off and keep grinding. So I see people that give up. That's one thing, because the process, especially if you're working in cleared spaces, where it requires a security clearance, the whole security process takes a long time. So you can rush and get your submit the paperwork and get stuff in, but it may be months, several months before you even get a phone call back or email back. So some people get discouraged with the process and more or less let it fall to the wayside. So I think some people just don't have the stick-to-itiveness. That's one area that I see. But also the other areas that I see mistakes made are in you're going to be judged on your word and your product. So if you oversell yourself or misrepresent yourself, at some point you're going to be found out, and hence your brand is going to take a shot. So at that point you become tainted, and folks won't want to deal with you. So be about your word, put your best foot forward, get out there and get the work done, and represent yourself in an accurate way. And then the other thing is pay your taxes. Make sure you hire great people to support you. I mean, speaking from experience, my wife and I, we've had what we thought was a wonderful accountant for years, and when we started the business, we kind of figured we'd stay with that accountant, and we just found out within the last year that, not that they necessarily did anything unscrupulous or intentionally wrong, but they did some stuff that wasn't right, and so paid thousands of dollars, probably close to tens of thousands of dollars, fixing other people's mistakes. So just make sure you hire great people to support you and pay those freaking taxes. And the last thing, pay your people first. So once you start hiring employees and they're working for you, when the money rolls in, or if no money rolls in, you need to find the money to pay them first. The quickest way out of business is to not pay your employees, because word travels and nobody will want to come work for you. So those are like the biggest mistakes that I've seen up to this point.
Got it. Yeah, that's the quickest way to get rid of some people, is for them not to be able. You be unreliable. They got rent, mortgages, and car notes and stuff like that, and you being stingy with the money. That's not a great look right there. But one of the things,
it's not even necessarily being stingy with the money, right? So in contracting, you don't get paid. Some contracts, and it's written in there, some contracts are like, you may not get paid for 45 days, 60 days, 90 days. So people are working, but you're not, you as the company, you may not get paid from the customer, whether it be the contractor or whether it be the government or the prime contractor. You may not get paid for a while. but you still have to pay your employees every 2 weeks. So you have to have that payroll in reserve. So it may not necessarily be a selfishness thing, but it is a planning thing. You need to make sure you have money in reserve so you can pay your employees.
Got it. See, I was under the impression that the government cut you a check and and then you went off and did everything like that. But that's a great point you brought up. That sometimes do you may run into a situation where the check may come late, or you may have an issue with the company and stuff like that. So so someone out there who may hear that, what would you say is good ways to keep that reserve or payroll?
If you're just starting out, I would say save. Build your savings. And so I'll say this, right? If you're starting a company, you really need to do an honest assessment of yourself. Are you going to start this company, and through hell or high water, are you going to stick with it and you're going to make it successful? If you're passionate about what it is that you're about to embark on, then be willing to gamble on yourself. And by gamble on yourself, I'm saying this: if you're currently working and you have some money in savings, write yourself a check, for whatever, $50,000. Put that in a business account, and that's strictly for business. So you're betting on yourself at this point. And then start out and go get it. Otherwise, you just got to save. Try to get 3 to 6 months of reserves in the bank, and make it only for business, and go from there. Try to self-fund yourself as much as possible before you go out and start getting loans. Now maybe once you actually get a contract that and you're generating revenue, maybe you can go get a line of credit and only use it when necessary to help you during the lean periods. But otherwise, try to self-fund as much as possible. And like I said, most important thing I think is do a serious assessment of yourself to make sure that you have what it takes to start this thing, cultivate it, build it, grow it, nurture it, and be willing to suck it up during the tough times, because there will be some tough times.
Okay. Now, one thing that you did that I saw was, not only did you get the government side of the house, you also got a contract with Visa, right? Now,
with who?
With Visa? Was it Visa? Am I right on that?
No. I don't know. Outside of the government, the only other work that I've done is for the state of Maryland.
Okay, for the state of Maryland. All right. Now, with that being said, I thought you had done some of Visa. My bad on misquoting you. That's why I asked you about that first. But now, going from the government, from the federal side of the house to the state side of the house, was there any difference in doing things like that?
No, not really. No, actually, not at all. No, it was more or less the same.
Okay. So now, going through the hiring process, now you got your, you went through the process of, hey, this is what you need to do to be able to be eligible to bid for contracts. And you get a contract from the government, and you account for every dollar. Do they give you the money up front, or is it paid out quarterly, annually, or is that something that you negotiate through the negotiating deal?
No, so like I said, depending on how the contract's written, some contracts are plus 45 days or plus 60 days, plus 90 days, or whatever. And just like you have to do a time card for your company, you have to record your time. Well, you have to do that for the government. You have to submit your hours, the amount of hours that you did on a particular task to the government, and then they cut you a check, based on the contracted time. So like I said, if it's 45 days, then in 45 days, at a minimum of 45 days, they'll cut you a check. Sometimes it's longer than that, but it's going to be at least 45 days or 60 days or 90 days before you get a check from the customer.
Okay, so you pretty much have to go in, do the work. Once the work complete, then it's the 45 days.
No, it's so So if you start a job on the first, say for instance, and then maybe maybe as part of the contract you bill or you invoice every week. So let's say you started work on the first, you submit your first invoice on the 7th. You probably won't see any revenue from that until 45 days after that.
Got it. Okay. So you sent your, and so it's 45 days plus after you sent your invoice.
Yes.
All right. Got it. So, all right. So now when you're going through, now that you have this contract, and now you're kind of getting, you're getting your name out there or whatnot, and you're taking on jobs and stuff like that. Now, the most important piece that you said, you got to make sure you place employees. How do you pick and choose employees? Because a lot of times when people look for employees, they like to use their network, family and friends and stuff like that. What's some advice you can give for, picking and finding and choosing employees or dealing with family and friends and stuff like that?
Well, I won't necessarily even distinguish between family and friends and colleagues. And, like I mentioned earlier, this company is your brand, right? It's you. So you want every employee to be representative of what you want your company to be. So if you market yourself as this professional company with this level of expertise and having integrity and, all of these superlatives, right? You're this great thing. Then every person associated with your company needs to embody that. So you can't say we're this great company and you have your drug dealer cousin, coming in doing work for you, right? Because that's counter to what you said you are. So my philosophy is I want only people that represent the mission statement of 2CM Technologies. I want you, since we market ourselves as being this high quality, highly professional company with great talent, everybody associated with the company has to fit the bill. Everybody. So if I meet somebody and they're obnoxious, loud, condescending, they're not at the top of their field, they don't have the level of expertise, they're not articulate, they can't articulate their thoughts, on and on and on and on. I'm sorry, you may be a great person, but you can't work for me because you don't embody what 2CM Technologies is about. And every company owner has to have that as their stamp. Hey, we said we're this. I only want people associated with that. Only people that have those qualities and characteristics.
Got it. Makes sense. So, and that's the reason why I brought that up, because I know a lot of people, when they think of, hey, what I need, the top people in your network could be friends and family. Oh, well, this person, this would be great if I can help this person out and do that and good stuff like that. But it's great that you mentioned that if this person does not align with your brand and what you're putting out to the public, or these people, or whatever the case may be, what you're putting out to the public, then you shouldn't do business with them regardless of who they are, or whatnot.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you as well, as far as building your brand and getting your name out there with your, building your brand and your name around, your employees and stuff like that, going forward, like when you get these contracts, is there a time limit on them? Is it like, you got a 1-year contract, a 5-year contract, or that's all negotiable?
No, it's not necessarily negotiable, right? So when an RFP comes out, the request for proposals, when it comes out, it already has all of that spelled out. It could be a 1-year contract, 3, 5-year, 7-year contract, 10-year contract, or for you to provide, particular services. And so when you submit your proposal with all your costs and everything built in, all of that stuff is taken into account.
Okay. Now, looking back on it, is there anything that you going down your path? Is there anything that you probably would have done different, or you like, hey, I probably would have went this route, or this is how I could have expedited my vision? Is there anything that you would do differently?
Um, I from well, yes. So the one thing I probably would have done differently, and this kind of goes back to family. So when we started 2CM Technologies, um, so 2CM stands for what it means is two Christian men. So when I started the company, I was actually partnered with my uncle. My uncle is also in the information technology field. Um, Outstanding technician, outstanding engineer, outstanding person, love him to death. But what I found out was, as I mentioned earlier, the process of getting everything stood up to even be ready to do work with the government can take a long time. So we founded the company back in September of 2013, and we actually didn't start generating revenue until March of 2016. So it was about 2.5 years. And during that 2.5 years, all the stuff that I kind of mentioned beforehand about getting your DUNS number, getting your cage code, registering in SAM, and doing all of that stuff. You got to get liability insurance. It's a ton of things you got to do, um, and get clearances and all of this type of thing. It took a long time. It took months. Some things took almost a year. So it wasn't until probably sometime in 2015 when we actually got all of our stuff done. Like we did it. We did what we can do on our end. All the paperwork was submitted. All the checks had been written. Everything had been done. But we were just waiting for the government side to get their part done, and it just took a long time. So during that whole time, we were also trying to work the commercial side. So my uncle and I, we would have monthly meetings, and we would lay out tasks. He would make phone calls and cold call people. I would make phone calls and cold call people. And so what happened over the months and probably up to a year or so is every time we met, I would lay out my deliverables. All right, I was tasked with doing these things. I would lay out my deliverables. All right, I did all of this. And then when it would be his turn to present his deliverables, he wouldn't have done anything or very little. And this went on and on and on and on. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a grind, and I was passionate about it. I am passionate about it. So I was up late. I'm up late every night. I wake up early, go to bed late every night, grinding on the phone, making cold calls, sending emails all hours of the night. And what I realized was our grind wasn't matching up. His grind wasn't matching my grind. And I knew it wasn't going to work. I knew right then it wasn't going to work. We weren't even making money yet, and he wasn't willing to hustle. So at some point, he and I, we met up for one of our monthly meetings, and I told him, I said, I love you. I hope this doesn't affect our relationship, but we can't do business together. And he realized it wasn't it didn't give him a warm and fuzzy, but he realized what I was talking about. He wasn't as passionate about it as I was, and he didn't want it to interfere in our relationship either, and he understood. So it was like, no problem. And we're still cool to this day, still love him to death. But the one thing I wish I would have taken into account when I started was that whole assessment that I was saying. I should have assessed my partner or better. Also, I love him. I know he's a great engineer, but I didn't take into account that he wasn't as passionate about building the business as I was. So that kind of took a little bit of the excitement out of the deal, but it's all good. We rebounded and we're doing wonderful. So you take your lumps and you learn your lesson and you keep moving forward.
That's very true, and I think that sometimes when you have a business partner and you're driven, I'm very I believe big time, and this is my own personal thing to piggyback off of your thought process and my own personal experiences. I believe in doing things very small, keeping your circle small, keeping that, you know, line as small as possible. And the thing about it is sometimes, when you partner with people and you bring in partners and stuff like that, they may not have the same vision as you, or sometimes they lose vision. Things become mundane and emails are not getting returned and phone. It just seems like you just never going to they can't see it. They can't see 2 to 3 years down the line. In the beginning, it may sound good and sweet, and they may think they're getting somewhere. Then sometimes you may not feel like you're growing or you're expanding or things are not going the rate that you expect. And sometimes partners kind of lose vision. They get sidetracked. They start to say, "Yeah, we're kind of doing, 2CM technology. We're trying to make it, and but it's not really happening the way I want it to happen." And sometimes, like you see, you must do the assessment to say, "Hey, uh, I'm I'm willing to go down this path regardless. And if you're not going down this path, then you don't still have that same drive as me. You may have to, like you said, call in a meeting and things like that." So
Yeah,
that was a great point as well.
yeah.
And
And,
so,
and, and,
mhm,
and the other thing that gets lost, I think, is because you mentioned it earlier. You mentioned a multi-million-dollar contract or whatever. So people see the number or people hear about all the money that can be made,
mhm,
and they don't take into account. I don't get Cortez Duncan doesn't get $3 million. You know that $3 million is just a figure that's out there that's saying if we provide the service that we're contracted to provide, if we provide the service over this length of time, then we would have generated $3 million in revenue. That's what that means. So over 5 years, if we do what we're supposed to do, we would have accumulated that sum. But still, I got to pay. 2CM Technologies has to pay for a whole bunch of stuff. So at the end of the day, I don't have $3 million in my pocket. So I think that's another thing. People get caught up in that dollar figure, but there's a lot of work and a lot of checks that have to be written um, to get that money. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be $3 million in 2CM Technologies' pocket.
that is a true part. Where I see where people just go back and you know look at. They just look at the headline. They look at the headline and they don't understand how that breaks down. You're 100% right. They say, "Hey, we give you $1 million project. With this $1 million project, you have to pay people, you have to pay administrative fees, taxes, lawyers, this and that, whatever expenditures your business may have." Um, so people may lose that. Oh well, the government gave him $3 million, and he's a multimillionaire now and whatnot. They may not look at the work because it's people look at the grind or they look at the shine, but they just ignore the grind and all of the nuances that's beneath the surface. They just see when you
Yeah,
get that contract, you're doing great. 2CM is doing XYZ, and they forget about all of the things that, hey, I have to have employees, I have to hire employees, accountants, lawyers, legal fees, administrative fees, this type of fee. I got to buy equipment. Whatever the case may be inside that contract, people just ignore that and they see, you know, what's at the shine. Whoa,
yeah,
I saw he got a $3.1 million contract, and it's the same thing I noticed with other aspects of entrepreneurship. Someone will see, uh, they will see you on television, and they will assume that, hey, you know what, I want to be on television too. So they don't see all of the underground layer work. This person's probably been at this for 4 or 5 years. Like you said, you was in this for 2 years, just 2.5 years, just with no money, just to set things up to be able to get a contract. When you get the contract, people just look at the end. They just look at the end and they want to mimic that. Well, Mr. Duncan, take me to that point. I want to get that contract in 6 months. I want to do it in this amount of time. And like you said about the earlier mistakes people make, they lose vision because they didn't look at going back to 2013 when you started out to even going down this. They're looking at 2017. He's doing XYZ. I want to do that. How can I get there as soon as possible? I don't want to take no 2.5 years. I want it in a couple months or whatever the case may be. And like you said, in that self-assessment phase, you have to be able to see that and realize that, hey, this I might end up taking twice as long as he did. It took him 2.5. It may take me 4 or 5. Am I willing to draw that out to 4 or 5? So that's a great stuff. Great stuff that you said. So what do you? So is there anything else out there that you want to say? Um, out there about 2CM, and I thought that's a pretty cool name. How you broke it down to two Christian men. Um, about 2CM and stuff like that. Is there anything you want to say or mention or advice you want to give?
Uh, just that I can tell you a little bit about our goal. So,
Okay.
Basically, we're trying to recruit the best and brightest in the industry, and we have a very very generous benefits package, and we're trying to build generational wealth. Um, we're trying to pass. We pay our employees probably more than most companies will because we're small and we're lean, so we don't have a lot of a lot of overhead, and we try to roll that right into our employee salaries. I try to pay them as much as I possibly can and still keep the lights on. And you know, we're big into reaching back. So Chad's been a pleasure to speak with, and you as well. And we just want to give back. The pie is huge. There's enough for everybody. I don't understand, the people that kind of are selfish with it and don't want to share the knowledge and don't want to share opportunities. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of resources out there, a lot of money to be made, and there's enough for everybody. So, wherever we can, we try to help. We try to reach back and help folks, and we're just in it for the long haul. This isn't. We didn't really start overnight. I don't see us, becoming this huge company overnight. It's going to take, years and decades of grinding. But I'm up for it. Like I said, I'm passionate about this. My son, he's a college graduate. He's a marketing major. My goal is at some point to bring him into the company and have him do the business development aspect and turn the keys over to him at some point. And so my wife and I can retire at Grand Cayman or somewhere in the Caribbean and collect checks. But we're just trying to do great things in the industry and provide opportunities to other people.
Awesome. That is, that is truly amazing. I know people hear the name Chad all the time. Chad is the executive producer of the show. For the people that have been tuning in over the years and years and years and stuff like that. That's great stuff that you said, and that you can, that you're providing opportunities for others. So, I'll be going ahead and send my resume in. But it's great that you are, providing opportunities that people can, that you was able to go out and build your own entity, your own company, and that now you can go out and build something with other companies and with other people and individuals and provide them opportunities. But people, I want to say out there, before you think you can get the opportunity, put the work in. If you know you need the education, go get the education. You need that certification, go get the certification. Do the things that you need to do in order to be successful. At least give yourself the opportunity. Don't sit back and be like, well, this person didn't do this, but you haven't put the work in. I would say about myself personally, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it's just the caliber of thinking that I do, where it's been opportunities that I respect the industry and I respect the game. And in order to be great at anything, you must first be a student. So I like to be a student. I like to read. I like to pay my dues, go through the process, learn through the process, because yes, you may have an opportunity. You never know. You got to be prepared for when the opportunity comes. So if the opportunity presents itself, make sure you have everything you need. If you want to go out there, you want to get with the company, the company needs people with these type of certifications and, this degree level and stuff like that. Make sure you're doing it, And so you just don't sit back and complain, oh, well, this person didn't give me an opportunity. Well, you haven't done the paperwork. You haven't, taken the necessary steps, or maybe seeked out the experience or internship or whatever the case may be. So pretty much, long story short, do what you need to do to get where you want to get. So, but yeah, that's great. I definitely appreciate you for taking the time out and stopping by, and sharing all of those gems from starting the contract to getting the contract to securing, breaking down the contracts and how people can get into them. Sharing some of the surprising things. Well, that's one last thing I want you to hit on. You hit on the characteristics what make people fail, right, or have hardship. What are some of the characteristics that you see that people on the opposite side that are successful of? What are some good characteristics that you would say, people who have done this, and this, YZ, this is a common trait that a lot of them have?
I would say so. Several of my I have a few mentors in the industry, guys that many of whom I was in the military with, have also started their business, have been very successful. The one common trait that I see amongst them is that willingness to hump, right? That grind. All those guys, because most of them have been guys that I know, have that level of grind where they're not taking no for an answer, and they're putting in the hours, and they're building the relationships. So those are probably the common traits. You got to be an early riser. If you're going to be successful in business, you got to be an early riser. Get up early. You're going to be up late if you're doing it right. And that's the one thing I see amongst all the successful people in this industry.
Okay, hard working, get up early and work. Now, what is some advice you would give to veterans who are still serving that may want to become entrepreneurs? What advice would you give them?
The road is paved for you. There, whether it be the VA or different factions on your particular base, there's a lot of resources out there for veteran business owners. So, like you mentioned earlier about education, do the work before you get out. Make those phone calls, go to those meetings, go to those conferences, figure out what it is you need to do, start building your network, and then once you separate, go for it.
Okay. So all of my current active duty members out there, or maybe they're active duty or reservists that you are out there listening, something I always preach to people is, don't wait till you get out to start doing it. Start doing it now. I know the schedule could be hectic and you already got a lot of responsibilities on the table. But the thing about it is, much as we may all love it, 9 times out of 10, we're going to become civilians again. Majority of us, at least a vast 90% of us, we won't do the whole 20, 30 year and retire, all the good stuff like that. But for everybody else, start working on yourself now. Maybe, getting the education, start going to the conferences. And most important piece that he said in the beginning of this is your network. So that's one of the things you need to think of as well. So one of the big things is don't wait until you get out to build a brand. Start building the stuff now. So that's one of the big things I would say too. So that's a good point that you made too, to giving out to current investors that are out there now. Is there anything else that you want to? I'm thinking that we covered everything. We got into how people can start it. We gave ideas for veterans, civilians, doing the self-assessment, the pitfalls, the ups, the downs, all of the great stuff like that. So I think that's some pretty good. Is there anything you think you missed out on, Mr. Duncan?
No, I think we pretty much covered the gamut.
Okay. All right, guys. As always, this is the Investor Show. This is Mr. Cortez Duncan from 2CM Technologies, talking about getting contracts with the government, and stuff like that. As always, guys, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, comment, share button, all of the great stuff. And to the next podcast, video, cartoon, book, whatever you see me do crazy around the globe. Peace, be safe. I'm out. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Simple Investor Radio Show with author and investment advisor, Prince Dykes.